When the people you trust betray you, by me. She was driving down the dark road in the middle of the night. She had woken up from yet another nightmare, and all she wanted to do was be in Edward's arms. It was all she could think of. So she threw on the first clothes she saw, got in her truck, and headed towards the Cullen house. When she saw the fairly well hidden turnoff for their house, she continued towards where Edward was. Edward had been somewhat distant lately, but he had also been spending a lot of time with her and giving her gifts that she loved, even though she hated that he was spending money on her. When she arrived in front of the giant glass house, she barely waited for the motor to stop before she exited the car and walked towards the front door. When she reached it after what felt like an eternity, but was actually 20 feet, she didn't knock. She simply opened the door and walked in. She had stopped knocking at some point. She didn't even know when. "Edward," she called out quietly, knowing he would hear her even if she weren't loud. Only now did she notice how empty the house really was. Usually some light was turned on somewhere in the house, or there was someone in the living room talking, but right now it was utterly devoid of life. "Bella?" came a sudden drawl from behind her. She jumped in surprise and turned around. Her heart suddenly felt like it was beating 10 times faster. "Ah, Jasper, you scared me," she said, sounding embarrassed. "Apologies, darling," he said. She suddenly noticed his face. He looked sad and angry. "Are you all right, Jasper?" she asked, suddenly concerned. For a moment he didn't respond. He just stood there looking at her, her eyes somehow beginning to look sadder. His eyes somehow beginning to look sadder, if that was even possible. "No, not really, darling," he said, voice sounding pained, almost like he was on the verge of tears. Bella stepped towards him. "What's wrong, Jasper? What is it?" Instead of answering her, he took her hand and started walking towards the stairs, making her follow behind him. When they reached the door on the second floor, Bella didn't know what was inside. Jasper opened the door and gently pulled Bella inside before closing the door. The walls were lined with books, and the room seemed like one big bookshelf. A few of the titles she could spot seemed like history books, but she wasn't entirely sure. At the far end of the room was a teal couch. It looked incredibly soft. As they got to the couch, gestured for Bella to sit down. When they were both seated, Jasper just sat there for a moment before letting out a pained sigh. He looked at the verge of tears in his eyes. "I saw Alice kissing someone else," he said, with more pain in his voice than she ever thought possible. "I guess I should have seen this coming. We weren't mates, after all. I just thought she loved me, but I guess not," he said, sounding increasingly resigned. "Oh, Jasper," Bella said softly, putting the hand he was still holding on his knee in support. She and Alice hadn't been close recently. Alice always seemed to be busy with something. Now she knew what, at least. She had never thought that Alice would be capable of doing something like this, and yet she had. She in no way believed that Jasper would lie. He had always been honest to her, never sugarcoating anything and never being mean. Jasper's eyes softened slightly at Bella's show of support. His face quickly turned pained again, as if he had suddenly realized something. "I have to tell you something, Bella," he said in a shaking voice. "What is it, Jasper? I'm here for you," the brunette said, trying to comfort him as much as possible, not liking seeing him like this. With a pained face and shaking voice, Jasper whispered barely loud enough for Bella to hear. "It was Edward I saw kissing Alice." "No," Bella said, devoid of emotion, not willing to believe what she had just heard. "That's not right. He wouldn't do that. Please tell me you're lying." she whispered, sounding increasingly desperate. I'm sorry, darling, I can't do that, the blonde said, sounding pained yet resigned, as if he was expecting her to blame him for it. Tears started trickling down her cheeks, and her breathing hitched. Suddenly she had thrown her arms around Jasper and was sobbing into his neck while sitting in his lap. For a moment Jasper just sat there confused, but then he slowly put his arms around her and hugged her back. They seemed to sit like that for an eternity. But when Bella's tears dried up, and she couldn't cry anymore, she finally said, I can't be here when he returns. I can't face him, Jasper. Sitting in the quiet for a moment, Jasper asked, Run away with me? The hope visible in his eyes that no longer seemed quite as resigned. Yeah, Bella replied, barely needing time to think it over. The only reason she wanted to be in Forks was that Edward was here. She no longer desired to be anywhere near Edward. As long as we get as far away from Forks as possible, I'm in, she said, slight smile in her voice. The smile on Jasper's face was soft. What do you need to pack? He asked. I have a bag of clothes in Edward's room. I don't need anything else. I'm ready when you are. Sitting in Bella's truck, Jasper was driving down the road when a road that Bella didn't recognize. She asked, So where to, cowboy? How do you feel about Texas? He asked with a grin on his face. That was something I wrote a while ago. I hope you enjoyed listening. Anyways, there's a link to the fic in the description. Have a nice day.